Hey guys, welcome back to King's Outdoor Life. Today's video is a long video, but stay with me. We're going start to finish from layout, design, template making as you see here, all the way to the end product of the granite for our laundry room. So I'm fascinated by the process. I hope you enjoy the ride along with us today.
That's the fixture, the slab, the goes in the stock. The flat part will sit here and don't round this. It'll just come out and kind of barely go around.
Yeah, just so a very tiny radius there, yeah.
And I had to leave a little room here and there.
That's good. That's good.
To be able to get it in.
We want room to get it in, because if you don't leave room to get it in, you can't get it in. You might as well not have it.
Mess up everything here and everything over there, and possibly break the piece trying to get it in.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
We don't want to do that.
So what we're doing here is this is the template held up to the giant slab of granite. So what we're trying to figure out is that's where some of this red coloration is, and we don't want a lot of that red. We like those little specks down through there. So this is where the sink is going to go.
Measure that sink.
So those things right there, that's what grabs it. The spacer just gave him enough room to get that in between there, and just the surface tension picks it up. So when he pulls up on that grabber, like I said, just the surface tension holds on to it. He'll bring it in the warehouse here. Okay. This is the table they cut them on. That table right now is rotated up at about, I don't know, 10-degree angle, and they just set it against it, and it'll set it upright, lay it all the way down, and it will spin all the way around as they lay out with that saw. Here's the template we made. We already laid it out as you saw. Right there. There you go. Bueno, senor. There you go. Alright, so we're putting the marks on there with the sink. He knows what the marks mean, and that's all that matters. So I run it fast forward here, but this giant saw is just amazing how it cuts this solid granite without any problem. And it goes forward and backwards just the same. So this first pass here, he takes right off the edge, and he goes in where the next edge is going to be and puts it on place there. And he comes in a little bit more, and he cuts almost back to the same spot. We got to include the radius though, so it doesn't come all the way to the same spot. I don't know if you can see the laser or not, but he's putting that laser from the saw, and he's moving the table. Sorry, he's moving the saw over, not the table. And he puts that laser right down his line. So let me take this opportunity to say all the guys and gals at Alabama Kitchen and Bath have been so great to work with. Rodney, you saw the template. That was Sherri, you heard as we were putting the template on the layout. She's helped me pick out everything. I can't remember all the guys' names in the back of the shot, but they were super great to let me, tag along, setting up a place for me to put the camera. They were just very, very great to work with all day. Now you have to separate the slab. You don't want to cut the
extra slab, they'll use it for the next guy, or for us if we decide to use this in the kitchen. Now he's turning the table. Apparently the saw only goes XY. Or in this case, east-west.
So after turning the table here, my, how the tables have turned. So anyway, after turning the table, he cuts it to length, so he has to cut off this end here with obviously the template. We had that marked. He just puts the laser on the line and makes that cut. Makes quick work of it, right? And then he goes the other way and he cuts the first one to here, backs off, moves it down a little bit, and cuts the second one to there, because we're going to have that inside radius there. It'll make sense in a minute once you see the shape of this, but you can see a little bit how we're going now. So here they're flipping the slab over, and I really didn't know why at this point, but of course they do. They do this every day. So once they get it flipped over, he started just what seemed to be arbitrarily making these cuts here, and I was like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Why are you cutting through the back side and at a random place and a random depth? But of course, they do this every day. There was nothing random. You'll see in a second what they're doing here. So we'll call that the end of stage one. They pick it up again, set it on a little cart, for lack of a better term here, to go on to stage two. These guys are complete professionals. They make a motion to one of the other guys. They know exactly what they're saying, and they know what the next step is. They work so well together, and they move it from this part of the shop down to the back of the shop where the next guy takes over and he does his job. So remember those arbitrary grooves I said he just cut? Well, they weren't arbitrary. This guy here, he's blowing out those grooves, and I still don't know what he's doing, and I'm trying to figure out, the whole time what he's doing. But anyway, he knows what he's doing. That's all that matters. Then he gets this stuff here that's some sort of plastic, and he runs it out the length of those arbitrary slots, and he cuts them to length, one for each side, and he puts them in there. Then what this does is this adds some strength to the slab to make it less likely to break. Here he's mixing up a two-part epoxy, and that's what he's going to put these plastic strips in with. And after he mixes up, watch him. I think he does this often. Just the art that goes into this. These guys are such craftsmen. Watch him pour this perfectly down the hole, and then he sticks this plastic, what appears to be like a spacer, down in the hole on each side. And again, that provides some rigidity and prevents the slab from breaking as they're handling it and moving it around from place to place and installing it. So before we go on to the next stage, we have to double check our measurements. Before we make the final cuts, put in the sink and everything, we double check the template, make sure everybody knows where everything goes. And this guy here was great. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was so precise on everything. And then once he's sure that everything adds up and everything on his paper is matching the template, then he takes me into his office to lay it out on the computer. So basically what he's doing here is laying our slab out on a CAD system, a computer drawing system of some sort, and he's showing me here the first thing he does is he lays out the sink itself and the radius that we'll have on the inside corners of the sink. So he saves the name of that sink, and then he'll say that to on his desktop like you would a Word document or whatever else, and he'll pull that back in to the design in a minute. This computer is what's going to tell the next machine that does the cutting where to make its cuts. So after he gets this saved, he opens up the CAD system and actually draws our slab. So he says you've got the measurements here, you've got 25.5 inches this direction, so many inches in this direction, 18 inches in that direction, and he basically tells the computer each of those measurements, make the turn this way, make your turn 90 degrees this way, 90 degrees the other way, And you can see the shape of our slab coming together here. Then he imports the sink diameter. Once we figure out on the line it needs to be on, he brings in that sink that he already made and drops it in.
And we don't have to drill it. We'll drill it on site.
What is it?
Yeah, we'll drill it on site because we may move it here.
Okay, no problem. I can let's keep for drill on site. If you want, I can drill on the machine, but if you...
No, we'll drill on site, and then I just wanted to see on there once we measure it how it looks before we start cutting.
Yeah, you're right. Let's put like 3 1/4 of setback.
A lot of painstaking design went into exactly where we put the sink and where we put the faucet, but we want to wait to drill the hole till we get it on site, because as you'll see once we do the install, we have our breaker panel right above the sink. So we got to make sure everything works, has its place, and we don't have any problems here. So the last thing he's showing me is once we get this slab out there on the table where the actual machine is going to be, it's going to be resting on these blocks. So he's dropping those blocks on there that will support and hold the slab while the CNC machine cuts the sink hole. So you got to make sure those blocks are in the right place where they don't get in the way of the saw, for lack of a better term, and also support the slab evenly in all directions. And you'll see in a minute what I'm talking about when I mention these blocks. Until this, I had no idea, so I'm learning as we go.
No, that's good.
These are just see for if this bed's gonna touch something, you know. But I
Yeah.
see everything's okay. I can see inside of it. It's not gonna be
so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah. Alright, now I'm gonna send for the machine.
Send it.
So while we were waiting for the resin to dry, really it was dry by the time we got through on the CAD system, this guy grinds off that resin on the back and gets a nice slick surface for the machines at the next step to grab onto, if you will. So here we're seeing this attachment on the front of this forklift that will actually pick up this slab to move it onto the CNC machine. The front end there has a pressure lines that will kind of vacuum seal it to that slick side. So before we put it on there, he has to set this up. So he puts water down first. Here he's showing me the laser lines that the machine is putting the laser lines to exactly where to put these blocks that hold the slab in place. There's a water line and an air line that's that red and blue line that we attach to each of these blocks, and we put them exactly where the laser is. Right now we can move them around. Once he turns the machine on, it locks these in place, and he kicks them and say, look, they're not moving. Here you see the machine is showing exactly where everything is, and okay, you got it in place or not. He showed me exactly how these lines work. How right now the air is in the red. There's no pressure on these lines. He turns them on, it's going to grab. And if it grabs that piece of granite, it's going to show enough pressure that you can actually pick it up. It'll be in the green. So then these guys can pick it up and sit it over on the blocks exactly where it needs to go. Once we get it in place, they pull the machine out of the way, and it lines up. Once he turns on the machine, it'll lock down that granite where it won't move. You push on it, kick on it, and it shows that it's not going anywhere now. And it shows the laser there exactly where the sink is going to be cut. He walks me through how it works here, and I'll stop talking so you can hear him warn me about the laser.
Okay.
You can record there, but I have a laser on the bottom. So if you see over there, I have one laser. So if you stand across this line right here, the machine is going to stop.
Okay.
Because this understand like has something wrong.
Yeah.
So again, I can't say enough about how gracious they were at Alabama Kitchen and Bath to let me come behind the scenes and get up and close to what they were doing here on my slab. So here is the drill head. First thing it does, it picks up a bit that drills a hole into the corner, not really the corner, the center of the left side of where the sink's going to be. So it drills the hole, it goes and it drops off that bit, it picks up the cutting bit, comes back and goes in that hole that it just drilled, and then begins to move, so let's say south, and then it comes all the way to the edge, and then it's going to turn to the east, like the front of the sinkhole. He puts a pad down on top of the cords, make sure we didn't get off the cords. And it comes all the way down to this corner, and that water clears off in a second. And then it turns back and goes all the way around back to where it started and comes back out that hole. So now we're back in the fan room, I call it. You remember micro and dirty jobs? This guy here has a dirty job. He generates a lot of dust. That's why he's wearing his respirator, and there's a fan right behind him that pulls all that dust out of the building. But he roughs in and gets the edges, pretty well where they need to be. And this is just totally an artisan here. He's doing all this by eye, and he's squaring up his tool there. That's what that red tool was. It gets that square edge back on. Now remember we had that radius there. It goes. He's finishing off that cut and getting that exactly where it needs to be. But again, he got it roughly where it needed to be before we go on the next step. But this guy deserves a lot of credit. He did a great job of taking this slab to the next place to where it needed to go. And watch him here. He's freehanding this. He drew off a line a 1/4 inch to where from the edge, which is a 1/4 inch bevel, and he's freehanding this all the way down, and he does inside the sink on all the sides that are exposed. He did this all just by eye. This guy's my new buddy. He was quite the showman. Imagine doing this all day, every day. And again, they're artists, but also just the physical labor that goes into this day in and day out, 8 hours a day. But he makes it fun. You'll see him in a minute. He's basically dancing with the granite, but everything with a purpose. So as you see here, there's several different colors of pads, for lack of a better term, that stick on to these tools of Velcro. So there's water and air. Air is spinning the head of this buffer, and the water is squirting on there to keep it from overheating, and it's part of the polishing process. But as the day goes on, I don't stick around. I had to go to work, of course, but he changes from one color to the next. It's a different grit of sandpaper, if you will. It's a different grit to get a good, smooth polish on that. Watch him get after it here. It's a dance, guys. It's a dance. It's so much fun. Look at him. He's having a good time. It's like Chavez, like boxer. Dip and dive, he said. We had so much fun. These guys, you got to like what you do, and these guys really did that. They love what they do, and they were, again, so gracious with their time, but just artists here doing what they do. He's getting that radius on there. He's going by feel to feel what that radius feels like, but he's getting exactly like it's supposed to be. And again, all freehand and by eye and experience on this. So he gets this little corner there, a little notch has to come out where the cabinet is, and he decides to do the limbo with it. Watch him. He says the limbo. What a guy. He finishes, but I say, wait. He says, wait, what? I said, I want to turn. You're having way too much fun, and the whole point is King's Outdoor Life. I've got to do some of the work, right? So anyway, I try my hand at this for just a few seconds. He tells me, go on this inside edge, go right here. And I'm thinking, the last thing I want to do is mess this up. So after just a few minutes of polishing or whatever I'm doing here, I realized real quick, I don't need to be doing this. I turn it back over to him.
Okay.
Gracias, señor.
So here we are, day 4, install. So it's 1 week to the day from when we cut and polished the stone, and they are bringing it out to the house for installation today. You can see they've got this A-frame built in the back of their truck to carry these very heavy slabs. They installed some other folks, some friends of ours, slab for them. This guy measured and instantly said this was not just right, so he fixed it on the spot with his tool there. So the next thing they do is he's putting a 2x4 across the sinkhole to add some additional strength and stability, because the last thing they want to do is the last thing I want them to do, to break this slab. But he kept looking back at the house thinking, okay, exactly where am I going to go? How am I going to set this up? He even thought about how he needed to turn the C-clamp handles to make sure he didn't have any trouble getting the slab in the door with those C-clamps attached to it. So I jump in there thinking they're going to need some help, but these guys are professionals. I didn't quite understand them to say, move out of the way, I've got this, but that was pretty well what they were telling me in not so many words. So I did. They've got this. Let me grab my camera. So here we go. They're going into the garage, straight into the laundry room, and this slab has to weigh 1,000 pounds. Probably not that much, but it's so heavy. But these guys are professionals, just like the guys in the shop. These guys know exactly what they're doing, and they do a great job with it. So first thing, to get it sitting up on the cabinets there, I set the camera down again to help them, and they do kind of need some help here. So we got to get it just right. And again, you cut it to fit, and we left a little bit of room on each end to be sure we could get it in there. So now we've got to lay it down, and again, don't fall, don't drop the granite. And we're going to slide it as far as we can, and then I was telling him, you've got to pick up this end and go in at an angle. He knew that, I think, but he agreed. That was the only way to get in is to pick up this right side. We're going to have to pick it up as high as we can and keep it square. If it's ever not square, if it's turned one way or the other, then it becomes too long. Right? So we got to keep it as square as possible after we pick up this end and slide it straight into place. A little more. A little more. Too much. I got it too far forward. A little bit of a language barrier, but we worked it out. A little more, a little more. He says, all right, buddy, come swap. I don't know why they swap places here, but he wanted to be right there. A little more weight on me as they're swapping places. One last shove here. We're going to get it in place.
So putting silicone around
the
top.
Silicone. And put supports on the back side.
Yeah.
Right here. Good.
So he puts the silicone around the top edge of the sink. It's an undermount sink. And he pulls it up. He puts it 2x4 again across there, because he's going to need that in a second. And he basically gets it exactly in place and uses his C-clamps to then go through the drain and pull the sink up tight against the granite. And that's mainly what will hold the sink against the granite. He said they do put supports in the back, and they screw those to the back of the cabinet, and it holds the sink up too, but the silicone, I think, does more to hold the sink in place than anything.
You have information for the faucet?
Yeah.
How many holes?
One.
Is there one in the middle?
Mm-mm. Right here.
Right there.
Is it centered? Is it good?
Sí, güey.
Can we see how far over can we go?
Yeah, I need this side because I think right there touch on the sink.
Right. Can we go here?
Yeah.
And we got to be sure we can get the.
Yeah, because I need 1.75 inch for the back side. You know.
My concern. We have to put the cover back on for the breaker panel, and we have to be able to open that door for occasionally to, you know, flip a breaker, turn things off, that sort of thing. So the breaker panel door has to be able to open without the faucet being in the way. Much discussion about where this faucet needs to go. Here he's getting everything that goes with the sink out of the way so he can put these sink supports in place at the back of the sink. I'm glad he did this instead of me, because you'll see in a second, he fits in that tiny hole much better than I would. So decision made on the faucet. No turning back now. We were able to center it over the drain in the back of the sink. So center on the sink looked the best, and it worked the best. Here he's checking it one more time. And here in a second you'll see me bringing the panel one more time. This has got to be right, guys. We only got one shot at this. And the last thing we want to do is mess up this beautiful piece of granite. So yep, it clears, it works. We have about 1 inch to spare. So everything looked good. Time to drill the hole. They set up their vacuum, so all the dust, he was able to contain it. They made quick work of this. The right tools and knowing how to use them, it's amazing how they make a job go so much easier.
Question for you.
Yeah?
Right here you put something. Because all time we put the silicone. But this is too much great, you know.
Yeah. I may put something. I may put a panel.
Put the caulking and paint. Because put this silicone, not paint in
I found
the
it.
silicone, you know.
Yeah. So do you put something under it?
Yeah.
Did you already do that?
Put silicone.
Oh, you already put silicone under it. I won't fit in there like you. Por favor, señor.
All right.
It's good. Gracias, señor. So here's your final shot of how it finished up looking today. Once we get the backsplash up, it'll look amazing. Final shout out to my friends at Alabama Kitchen and Bath. Go check them out online at alabamakitchenbath.com.